Hello everyone and welcome back to AdventuresOfWellUmMe, and today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age for the PlayStation 4. This was a remake, or remaster I suppose, not a remake, a remaster of Final Fantasy XII, taking it from PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 4, and you can also get it on, I know you can get it on the Switch, and I'm assuming you can get it on Steam and a few other bits and pieces there. But like I've been saying about the other Final Fantasy remasters and remakes and all that, I've found that this has just been one of those things that I have really come to appreciate, where they bring as many of their games as possible to the latest consoles to be played, whether it is through a remaster or just porting some of them across that haven't previously had that opportunity to be on that console before. I think it's one of those things that allows us to experience a franchise and live with the franchise rather than it just sit in the background on a shelf or wherever it may be, which is something that I'm going through at the moment, I'm wanting to play more games, but like I've said in previous videos, I've got consoles like down in drawers beside me here that I just don't play because I've already got so many things plugged into a power board in my lounge room, and it kind of, you go, well, is it going to be a fire hazard if I plug anything else in, or is it going to just take up too much space? It's one of those things that makes it a little bit harder to play some of the older games when that is the case. So I almost have consoles as like a collector's thing instead. And just when I get the opportunity, have the opportunity to play it. I'm looking like when I eventually move into my own place later on down the line, when we build our own house, that we can have like a theatre room where I might be able to set some of these up, which will give me the opportunity to possibly record a few more of these. But that's something for in the future, I guess. But Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age, I got the collector's edition version, whatever they called it, that came out at EB, which came with the steelbook case as well as the soundtrack, and that was about it really. There wasn't really I think it was more of a pre-order bonus than collector's edition from memory actually. But this steelbook case, like the artwork on this is absolutely beautiful. You got this classic kind of looking artwork here, but then on the back you've just got Final Fantasy Zodiac Age. I guess that's similar to what we had with Final Fantasy VII recently when we took a look at that. That just had Final Fantasy VII Remake on the back, but it had this great artwork of Sephiroth on the front. I loved Final Fantasy XII. When I had one of my first jobs, I actually purchased a PlayStation 2 and Final Fantasy XII. And literally that was all I purchased for a while, and I had that. Picked up a couple of games along the way, but it was mainly Final Fantasy XII, and I got Dirge of Cerberus, I got 10-2, because my brother picked one of those up for me. So we had literally just Final Fantasy games for the most part, and then I added a few other games. But this is probably the one game I played the most on that console, Final Fantasy XII. I never actually beat it while playing it on the PlayStation 2. I've restarted my save a couple of times because I got a little bit lost where I was up to and things like that, and thought, you know what, to enjoy it I want to start again. We did that, but being that at that point I'd already owned PlayStation 3, so I was buying like the last year, the previous generation's console at the time. But it was still a good game. It was a good game. I just never had the chance to actually beat it on that. So then I started replaying it on the PlayStation 4 with this. I've managed to get further than I ever did on the PlayStation 2. Haven't finished it because it was one of those issues where when you've only got the 500GB hard drive on your PlayStation and you're just trying to play games here and there, you uninstall them. And back then, like when I first started getting into these remakes and all that, I still had really slow internet connection, so it meant that when it came to playing the games, I literally was waiting like 24 hours for the game to download and things like that. So once I deleted a game off to try out something else, it ended up just being that I wouldn't put it back on the console. But now that we've got faster internet, I've got that opportunity to connect to that and download these games much better. So there's that as well. Can definitely look at that in the future. I liked that they, like, when they touch up the graphics in these games, it does make for just really appealing game to look at. And they are the remake, they've done like the international version, so they've added in the extra bosses and a few things like that, which I think is what really makes these games stand out when they add those extra bits in. They've done the international version. They did the same with 10 when I spoke about that. They added in the international release content. And you've got the choice between different soundtracks, a remastered soundtrack. So you've got better looking gameplay plus better sounding game with more challenges in it. I think that's kind of where it all comes to. But I really liked Final Fantasy XII story because you played as Vaan, who was like wanting to just explore an adventure while he was trapped in this in Dalmasca, kind of like this Middle Eastern style fantasy city, and he ends up becoming caught up with Belthier and becoming like a sky pirate along the way. And I really enjoyed the story in this one, and then like the whole intro to the game where you play as his brother, and then you never play as that character again. Like you're playing as Vaan, brother or cousin or whoever it is. I'm pretty sure it's brother. But yeah, you had those opportunity to explore different things like that, which was interesting. I know I definitely appreciated the story and enjoyed that, and love the music in it. The music's great. And I really did like the not the gambit system. That one was a little bit different. I think it was the licensing system where you got your points and then you'd purchase the ability to use certain items or spells down like through your progress, and that kind of made things interesting because you had this ability to save up your points and purchase a certain tree, like going along a certain way that you'd want to, rather than predetermined set of leveling up. So I really liked that, and I guess they kind of replicated that in the 7 remake, where you now purchase upgrades for your weapons, and that's kind of your base stats improved through that. So that's a very common system now, I guess, with points going into those things. But all that aside, I really did love the vibe of this game. The story was good. I really liked the settings. I think that was the thing that I really enjoyed. I don't know, it just made me think of like an Arabian fantasy setting, and I thought that was great. It really did have an interesting locale, and it was very different to a lot of the other games from the Final Fantasy series. Kind of stepped a little bit away from like the medieval fantasy type things or the super futuristic fantasy type things, and it kind of mixed it. It was like a mix between kind of a Middle Ages fantasy set in Middle Eastern type country with like futuristic tech kind of thing, like with their flying ships and things like that. So it was a good mix with that. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of been a bit of a Final Fantasy streak with all this, having the remake be released to be talking about a couple of different Final Fantasy games. But that was Final Fantasy XII Zodiac Age. I highly recommend it. This is, like, in terms of gameplay, it's not that much different to the original one on the PlayStation 2. It's just more accessible, and it adds more content in. And changes a few little bits up here and there to make it just easier and flow better, which had the international release. So that's there as well. Take it as you will. I would recommend getting this over the PlayStation 2 version any day. But yeah, have a great day, guys, and I'll catch you next time.